A jubilant crowd in Paris this weekend as France elected Emmanuel Macron to be its next president, a blow to populism, as some have put it. Macron beat out Putin-favored, oh boy, don't get me started, Marine Le Pen, and will officially take office on Sunday. At the top of his to-do list, carving out a parliamentary majority in elections next month. We are joined here tonight by Philip Crowther, White House correspondent for France 24, and the jet-lagged Gillian Tett has heroically agreed to stay with us for this conversation. Philip, we'll begin with you. What happened in France in this election, and perhaps more importantly, what almost happened?
What almost happened was a populist, nationalist victory. At the end of the day, it was a pretty emphatic victory, after all, for Emmanuel Macron. He got over 60% of the votes. That is quite a lot, after all, and more than the polls even expected. But Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader for the Front National, got ever so close to making it all the way to the Élysée Palace. She made it to the runoff, after all, which is a lot better than any far-right leader has ever done in France, and a lot better than her predecessor, her father, did for the same party. What Emmanuel Macron managed to do was stop what was perceived as a potential wave of populism and nationalism in Europe, and of course here in the United States as well. Emmanuel Macron beat a populist candidate, very much like Donald Trump here in the United States. He beat a nationalist candidate, also like Donald Trump here in the United States, and also this was a victory for someone who was pro-European Union against the European bloc falling apart. Marine Le Pen was very much for the end of the European Union, and you've heard that from Donald Trump also in the past. He has said in the past that he is for more Brexits to come in the European Union. One possibility was a Frexit. Yes, that is the word used for the potential departure of France from the European Union because of Emmanuel Macron's victory. That won't happen for now.
And Gillian, I want you to react to something we saw today from former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. This was an interview with USA Today. She talked about the impact of nationalist, nativist, populist candidates in races, what we should and should not glean from that.
I think we make a mistake if we see populist candidates who don't win, and then we think it's had no effect. The rise of populism and nativism, really, which they rather go together, the rise of nativism is having an impact on the politics, even if the candidates aren't winning.
Do you concur with that?
I completely agree, because the important thing to realize is that En Marche, which Macron actually is leading, is actually an anti-establishment party in many ways. It's a new party, and it remains to be seen whether in the parliamentary elections next month, whether Macron can actually get a proper group of parties to work with him or not. The other thing that's incredibly important is that of the 20 million voters who chose Mr. Macron in the runoff, 43% only did so because they wanted to stop Marine Le Pen, and only 15% say they actually back his policies. That is not a recipe for stability.
And Philip, in the end, the Le Pen story is complicated. It involves her father, it involves her views, their relationship, the change in how both of them approach the Holocaust, a lot of denier history there. In the end, can it be said that the French of the countryside, who had threatened there to make the difference and put her over the top, just could not get there?
There were simply not enough votes to get her into the presidency this time around. When you mention the countryside, well, that's pretty much what you see from the electoral map. The cities largely voted for Emmanuel Macron. The countryside largely voted for Marine Le Pen, though the difference wasn't quite as big as we saw here in the United States in the presidential election in November. The good news for Marine Le Pen here is that not that she lost, but that she got over over 10 million votes in France. That is a new threshold for the leader of the National Front in France, and she will stick around. She's already announced that she will probably rename her political party, the National Front, and as you can see from those pictures, she was pretty happy at the end of this result, despite only getting just over 30% of the vote. She will stick around because, first of all, there are those legislative elections coming up in France in just 5 weeks' time. She will want to garner as many seats as possible in the National Assembly. And if anything goes wrong for Emmanuel Macron during his 5 years as president of France, his initial 5 years, well, then she would be able to step in and say, well, that didn't work out, did it? I was the second best choice. Here I am again. And we know already that she will be around. This is not the end of Marine Le Pen. It is the start, though, of something pretty new in France. It is absolutely an anti-establishment choice. The choice of Emmanuel Macron. Le Pen would have been an anti-establishment choice as well, of course.
And the world now gets to see the youngest ever president of France. Thank you both for joining us, Philip Crowther and Gillian Tett. Wow, it's late for all of us, I guess. You have the only good excuse. You just got off a plane from Asia. Another break, and when we come back, senators say they're going to start fresh on their health care bill in the Senate, but it appears they are taking one big cue from their counterparts in the House when the 11th hour continues.